Good evening, everybody. First of all, thank you for your time. That too on a Friday evening, and I'm the last speaker, but not the least. I'll be talking on application security. So it's not a product-centric slide. It's more in terms of what is happening in the today's world, and what are the scenarios which we as an IT professionals are facing in the day? I've kept it pretty simple. You know, at the end of the day, this is pretty simple. On one side is the client, which is the browser, and the other side is the application, which is basically the website of the store. The information needs to pass from the application to the client browser. And this is all which needs to be protected across at the end of the day. I'm not speaking about the data at rest, because this is not the play which we, the position we play at. But these are, the realities, evolution of applications. In 1995, if you really look at, the number of users were only 40 million and the number of applications was only 20,000. And the technology which we were talking about was HTML, which was pretty static, and that information was passed on to all those users. Here comes to now. We're talking of users 400 million and applications 9.5 million. And the technologies which came was Java, SSL, so SSL has its own evolution in terms of SSL 1.1, 1.2, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and then TLS came into picture in terms of 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 is what we are, discussing at this point in time. So it is still under. But the reality is, internet applications came into its own. Next slide, talk about 2005. Mobility became a norm, right? You have again, coming technology like Flash. These websites were becoming more and more interactive. You had things like SAML. Since the cloud, the SML piece came into picture. XML in terms of, because these web applications needs to exchange information across with all the applications which were there. And hence came the XML. What had its own journey per se, WebRTC per se, browser to browser communication, browser to, multimedia communication. WebRTC is a whole gamut which was bringing in. And again, if you look at the number of users, 1 billion users, and the application was 58 million. That's a humongous amount of application. And next is the cloud itself. The mobile video story. As per Cisco, 70% of the traffic in coming years would be a video traffic. And the video had its own, journey in terms of MP4. And most of, Google, Apple, all these guys, and then a lot of Hulus and the others, which are all talking about video which are being rendered across. Then we have HTML5, which came into picture. Because the mobile needs to be, enabled, those information, or the browsers needs to be given across that information. We have a humongous story in terms of HTML5, native applications, and then, customizing the web server so that the information can be delivered across to those devices. Again, the complexity, hypervisor, that's also a reality. We're living in a virtualized world. And all the server virtualization, the storage virtualization, network virtualization, the complete convergent story which we are building across. And again, the parameter which needs to be taken care is 2 billion users which we're talking about, and 207 million applications. And where we are going. Almost 3.2 billion users and 1 billion applications. And again, the technology, SDN which we are talking about, IPv6 is becoming a reality. Containers, things like Docker, IoT, Internet of Things, machine learning, micro nano as a technology. This is humongous change which is happening across in terms of the whole idea of putting across, this journey across, both in terms of a user as well as in terms of an application perspective, was to give you a perspective of the threat vector which we are living with. At the end of the day, the innovations or the business innovations are being delivered across by these applications, and these applications needs to be protected across because we are connected to the digital highway. All this information, all this Digital India campaign which has been pulled across those 9 pillars are to enable the citizens, the government to government applications, the government to citizen interactions. So all the interactions which are happening are going to be riding on this digital highway, and it will be delivered through these same applications. But what does it bring to you? It brings the threat vector. The 3 parameters which I wanted to put across was what has led to these growth of these number of users and this growth of the number of applications. First and the foremost thing is the penetration of the internet itself. You have internet connectivity, and these internet connectivity are the cheapest mode in terms of rendering service across. Rajiv Gandhi ji once said that I send 1 rupee from Delhi, and by the time it reaches the villages, the ultimate users only 6 or 7 or 10 paisa is there. What is the cheapest mode of service delivery? Probably. That is why there is so much of drive in terms of, I see a lot of activity on Twitter, specifically from the railways, Prabhuji, in terms of applications for everything. Application for reservation, application for food, everything is getting rendered across. So that was one point. Second point which I wanted to put across is these applications are important because these applications also contain the data, the information. And this information needs to be protected across. That's a separate threat vector which we are coming up with. And this is not only the personal data, because there is so much of social applications which are there in place, so much of public data is also there, and which needs to be protected across. And third and the foremost thing is the technology evolution which has happened over a period of time. HTTP 2.0 is what Avik talked about. But at the end of the day, all these applications, getting into HTTP, HTTP 2.0, SSL, JavaScript, CSS, IX, at the end of the day, what is it leading to? It is leading to a threat landscape. And hence, the applications become very, very important from a security perspective. Right? This is one cut which I wanted to give across to you. The second cut is in terms of how the application. So what we did was we drove across in terms of x-axis, in terms of where these applications are residing. It is, protection has to be given across, but at the end of the day, applications are not only residing in the data center. They are not only on the on-premise side, they are on private cloud and they are on public cloud. On the y-axis, we took across is standard applications and customized applications. Developing these applications is no more rocket science. It is becoming more and more user-friendly. Yesterday I was talking to somebody, there are a lot of free tools available by which you can design your own websites. Such is the use. Gartner says by 2020, the number of applications which are custom made would be developed by the own organizations rather than buying it from the Microsofts of the world. All this, I don't know, there is something called open data center architecture, whereby there is a huge open source campaign itself in terms of right from building the compute piece, open source in terms from a hypervisor layer perspective, from an operating system perspective. There is something called DCOS, Data Center Operating System. Again, building the complete story towards the open source, and this is what the mandate is. This is what the Chinas and the other countries are trying to push across. But what does it build to? All this open source story, again, somebody needs to validate and secure the infrastructure which is built on it. And these applications are humongous. Industry-specific applications, custom-made, on-premises. You need to have a security architecture which would require a different, a different security architecture, because the needs of these applications are different from these applications which are there on the cloud. Microsoft Azure, Rackspace, VMware, SoftLayer, open source, Google. And then we have the SaaS applications, Salesforce, Concur. These are all applications. So what I meant to say was that yes, A, the number of applications are increased. B, the location where these applications are residing across is also becoming more and more complex across. And the third and the very important piece is that we are moving towards an open source way. And there is a definite push which is coming from the government side, and this is where even the vendors are moving towards. OpenStack. Everybody is talking about the OpenStack, and everybody has got an OpenStack product too. Whether it is the HP of the world or the IBM of the world, they have an OpenStack product. Daylight, Open Daylight, the SDN story, the Ciscos of the world, the Junipers of the world are all collaborating to build on the Open Daylight project. The past piece of the story, Cloud Foundry, another, a common certified platform which certifies the Amazons of the world so that platform as a service can be rendered across. You have an open source things like Dockers, you have an open source things like Puppet and the Chefs of the world, which are open source for the orchestration layer piece of the story. But this entire open source wave or the open source data center is opening up more and more threat vectors. This is what I think. At the end of the day, the reality is the applications are driving the innovation. A, it is the cheapest delivery mechanism, and B, all the innovations. Every innovative company which we talk of today, be it Flipkarts of the world, be it Airbnb, whatever you name it, Ubers of the world, Olas of the world, everything is getting delivered by the application. And again, this is an important reality, is that these applications are, it is not only the application piece of the story, even the client browser side of the story is increasing across, because you have multiple browsers, you have multiple operating systems, and you have all these devices which would require this information which needs to be passed across. So there is a substantial increase on both the right hand side of the story and the left hand side of the story. That's an important parameter which needs to be. Again, coming back to the same, client and the browser side, and this is what the landscape is. You have tablets, you have Apples, you have Androids, you have Microsoft, mini tabs, laptops, God knows what, smartphones, and then you have applications. Webification of the apps. You have apps residing either on premises or on public cloud or on private cloud. You have applications because you need to. So what are we competing against? At the end of the day, because we are fighting for the innovation piece, this innovation is getting built across by these applications. Hence, the churning of these applications are not going through that testing phase which is required across. Every now and then we see, every week we see patch after patch after patch from Microsoft or the other vendors. Why? Because the testing which is required, or every year we see a newer and newer version which is coming in. Whether it is the iOS of the world or the Androids of the world, there is newer and newer iOS they are building in. Because they want to churn out innovation, they want to churn out more and more features across. And then SaaS. SaaS is also becoming a reality. And we are living in a hybrid environment where out of 40 or 50 applications we have, 10 applications are residing within the data center, 10 are on public cloud, or probably 7 or 8 are going to come from the SaaS model. And then, what are we competing against? We are seeing a global threat. So it's no more an Indian market per se. Global is the market which we are competing in. And we are competing with the best in the world. And it is the applications which are driving that innovation piece. And this is very, very important, slides. At the end of the day, whatever are the vulnerabilities which we are talking about or the threat vector which we are talking about, the only thing which any hacker or vulnerability which needs to take care is application vulnerabilities. And since we come from a full proxy architecture which I have talked about, we are full proxy to almost 12 to 14 protocols. HTTP, SSL, DNS, SMTP, SNMP, SIP, diameter, these are all, we are full proxy to these applications. And hence, we build on that story piece along the security side also. So this is the threat landscape, and hence, you will agree with me that applications are the one to go with, and applications are the one which needs to be protected across, because this is what the IP is. If you pick vertical by vertical, the entire telecom world is moving towards network function virtualization. Nobody, today, Alcatel-Lucents of the world, or the Nokias of the world, or the Ericssons of the world, the telco operators go and say to them, boss, it is good, but I don't want to buy appliance from you. I only want application from you, and rest would be on the commodity server. Or I would build in a telco cloud. I will do the orchestration and the provisioning piece of the story. So it is applications which are driving the businesses, and it is the application which are driving the innovation, and it is the application where the data is residing across. Hence, at the end of the day, infrastructure is a side product. It is the application which anybody wants to attack. It is the data which anybody wants to attack and get that information from. So what is F5 philosophy? We are very clear that we are only and only addressing the application security of the piece, be it at the browser side of the story and be it on the application side of the story. And what is it that we see as far as, we use the term context. This context is very, very important, because at the end of the day, you have the client, which can be any browser residing anywhere, and then you have the traffic which needs to go in and see that what is the traffic, and then somebody who needs to take care of the application health of the story. I touch one by one. So when we say we see the client context in security is anybody who wants to access any application piece of the story. Since we are sitting in line, we are able to see what is the device type, what is the operating system it is using, what patch, which location, which geolocation, whether he is a wireless customer or a wireline customer. And we have a unique story by which we can challenge the client across, because we are full proxy, and we can throw in a JavaScript by which we are able to pull out extra information which may be required for taking a decision whether this client would require access or would not require access across. So, client context. Second is the traffic context. Since we come from a layer 7 background, so we have the traffic context in terms of what is there inside the TCP session. We look at the RFC compliance for those 12 or 14 protocols and are able to figure that stuff out. And third and not the least, very, very important is the application context in security. At the end of the day, on the right hand side, where the applications are residing across, they are no more today residing in the physical data center. They are moving out, they are on SaaS model, they are on cloud. So how do you move or push the application security piece along when the applications move across? Most of the today's architecture, does not have any clue in terms of whether the application which they are protecting across is available or not. At the end of the day, firewall has no clue. Even if the application goes down or the server doesn't have the capacity to take in that kind of a load, it will keep on sending that packet across, having no clue in terms of what is happening at the back end in terms from an application perspective. So hence, what we are saying is that this entire security architecture needs to be relooked at. And, this is what the Albert Einstein said, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. No more, this zone-based security architecture is not going to work in the new paradigm which we are working in. Because you have the mobile, you have the client side of the growth, and then you have the application side of the growth. And then these applications are also moving across, and so is the browser side of the story. And hence, you do not expect different result from the same architecture. And hence, this is my last slide, is that we need to look at the security architecture from a very, very different perspective. We say is, application is the new parameter. And why this needs to be looked across is, there are a couple of pointers which I wanted to put across is SSL visibility. It is very, very important that you need to have an SSL visibility, because more than 30% of the internet traffic which we are talking about today is SSL. HTTP 2.0 makes it mandatory that whatever the browser needs to talk to the web server needs to have TLS running. And most of the network architecture, all the security architecture which we have built on today does not have either the capacity or the visibility into the SSL traffic. If that entire architecture doesn't have the visibility of the SSL traffic, then the entire security architecture goes for a toss. This is one. Second point is location independent. Wherever the application is residing across, the security policies needs to move across. If it is going on a cloud, the security policy should move on a cloud. If it is moving on Amazon or Microsoft Azure, the security policy should move along with the application. Very important point. Third, context-based access control. As I shared across, you should know who is getting access, from where he is getting access. And you should have the complete context of that session, where he is coming from, which location he is coming from. And in case you do not have full information across, you should be able to pull out that information across. And in case there are additional challenges which needs to be thrown across to the browser or to the cloud, you should be able to do that activity. The solution should be able to give you that leverage. Continuous trust verification, very important. You have so many of applications, and poor user will himself get killed in case he wants to, if everybody throws in a username password challenge across to him. How does the trust factor which gets built on so that you have a single sign-on piece with the SaaS and the cloud vendors? So the solution should be able to give you a unified SSO. It should be able to talk to the cloud vendors on the SML so that a SSO piece can be given across to you. Very important. Fifth and most important is it should be inline. It should be sitting in line between the cloud, between the browser and the application, so that it can look into the traffic. And when I say look into the traffic, from a 3D point of view, you should be having a client access. You should have the traffic so that it should be able to see what is there between the traffic, and then have visibility on the application side as well. And last but not the least is the application availability piece of the story, because applications are growing and applications are moving across as far as the divergent piece is concerned. This is what I want to leave you with. And thank you for your time. Any questions, I would be more than happy to take it. I didn't want to make it a product pitch, but we can have an architectural discussion. Your thoughts are you? Yeah. Yes. Security of the application which is daily coming to him. Correct. Correct. So, sir, at the end of the day, whenever a brother. So, sir, at the end of the day, these are network access controls, at the end of the day. So, whatever application which a browser would have access to, right, only those applications would be pushed across to the client. Right? At the end of the day, this is what, access controls are all about. So, if I'm a user, and I am an HR user, then I would have only access to the HR applications or probably 2 or 3 applications across, not to the marketing, not to the production. At the end of the day, this is the strategic point of control which I talked about. Since I am sitting in line, I would be the guy who would be controlling what is the kind of applications which you would have access to. And hence, I would be the guy who would be taking decisions in terms of application which you would have access to. It will not be that anybody would access any application.
Your language is secured in one. Beyond that, it is beyond a certain boundary. Your mind is a certain boundary. What about outside this boundary? Outside this boundary, this security last.
Yeah.
We have a mobile application. You have to go to this application. That's why you're doing it. That way you connect.
So you're talking of a scenario that these applications are residing on some other, say, public cloud or somewhere else. Still, sir, I am the inline device. Still, you will be getting access via me. Yes. So I am the guy who is publishing those virtual IPs. I am the guy who would be doing the load balancing piece and directing you to the applications at the end of the day.
While making a diagnosis, all the IPs are given particular department, those are accessible only to a particular section. No, not all. That's what you're trying to say.
So, at the end of the day, you could have a single VIP or you could have a single domain, right? But at the end of the day, we can have a group of users. One is for HR, another is for marketing, another one for sales, another one for, admin or something like that. And then you would have a granular access and in here that these are the 10 of the applications which this user group would be able to see.
I think the relevant partner.
Yeah.
I should have the access on 3, 4, or maybe all information wherever I go. Then there is a security problem.
So security, at the end of the day, there would be some admin users which can, at the end of the day, this is a role-based access which will come.
Right. So what I'm trying to say, as a head of the department, when I access, I will be getting all the access, right? But there are other people who work for marketing, finance, accounts. They have the limited
Access, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you are trying to say in your security, so you will give 1 or 2 exceptions to go through that.
Sir, in any role-based access which you do, you define users. And when you define users, at the end of the day, if there are 10 or 15 admins which are required or given access across, this is what we do. Any questions, sir? Anything on the open standard piece, anything which you want to share across that this is the initiative you guys are doing within the organization? I told you, so much is happening on the open source side. Linux is a big thing at this point in time. We are building clouds on an OpenStack platform. We are building SDN through an open daylight piece. We are talking of the data center operating systems. HP Helion, IBM is coming and talking about it. So is there any special initiative which you as an organization is taking specifically on the open source side, because this is a big buzzword which everybody is talking about? Or anything which you want to share across?
Any example in the government sector where this solution has been applied?
Which, sir, F5 solution, this solution?
Any example in the government sector, ministry, department?
So, Rajesh, so he says that any example where in government we have implemented this solution.
Similar question is me actually. First of all, I can congratulate this is a very good presentation. I opener for the application security side. Most of the government department don't care about this. The availability is the priority. My question is actually, once we are talking of the application security, there is other security also like server security, cloud security, gateway security, and that is not the application developer part. Either you make your application secure, fine. But how the other security will be dependent on the application. So taking care of the entire security of the application.
Yes, so at the end of the day, the infrastructure needs to be protected across. At the end of the day, there is an infrastructure piece and there is an application piece. But what we address across is the application side of the story. That is what, you have other vendors. We are not a firewall vendor, we are not Fortinets of the world, we are not Checkpoint of the world, we are not Cisco. So there is a play which they play, and there is a play because from 1996, F5 came into being in 1996, and in 2002 came the TMOS. TMOS is our full proxy operating system, which is a real-time operating system. And this entire philosophy or a baseline which we are talking about as far as the security piece is coming from TMOS. We are full proxy. That means we break into the session, we see what is there in the header itself to figure out where, how, when, and who is going to access it across, and hence we can play the security piece of the story. So we are very clear, we address the browser security. We have separate product which takes care of the web browser story and the mobile browser story. But as far as the application piece is concerned, for the last 20 years, we have been sitting there only doing application side of the story. So we are very clear, we only address the application. But you're right, sir, the infrastructure piece also needs to be there.
Sir, then you have a different security policy.
So the security policies will remain the same at the end of the day. It is the same IP addresses, it is the same domains. But the thing is, the device should be capable enough of giving you those kind of parameters across.
Right? If you detect some error or whatever you are monitoring, the application will not be delivered then.
Sir, errors is something which are an operational piece. The capability of the device is to give you visibility. At the end of the day, device is as good as how it is implemented. At the end of the day, somebody is, features are something which can be delivered across, but at the end of the day, how you use the device is something is on the user side. How do you configure it across, how you operate it across is something which is an operational hazard which, we as a technology organization do not know.
That's why I am saying different security policies required to use the devices.
You can have your own security parameters set across in terms of guidelines. Most of the organizations have their own, procedures, security operational procedures that who can access, people write logs, there are log books, who are the people who would have privileges as Sir said out across that I have admin rights, who should be given those admin rights, who are the people who can make those changes across, and somebody who will log that what is the activity which is going to done by admin or done by a user. So these are some of the parameters which needs to be taken care of.
And I give an analogy here actually. If you go back maybe 6 or 8 years back, we used to talk about the firewall and IDS or the IPS. We used to protect the perimeter. But we were never concerned about what is there inside the data center. But now if you see, what has changed, maybe I have a locker in the house. I have a maybe boundary. Should I protect my boundary or should I protect the locker? Where I have everything is stored there. That's more valuable to me. I need to secure that more as compared to the house. So that's maybe the perimeter of the security. It has changed. Maybe it has moved from the boundary wall of the house to the shelf or the locker which attaches there in the house. So this is the way maybe the applications are more critical now because they need to be secure because they are the maybe if I get access to the house, it's okay, but I should not get access to the application or the vulnerabilities onto the applications. So this is the way that the perimeter is changing for the security. Okay, I keep securing the boundary, but I have to be more concerned about the applications which is there inside.
To add to
additional security.
That's very important.
Additional security you are
That's very important.
Sir, I want to add on to a perspective across. Is gone are the days, sir, when infrastructure security team used to be separate across and the application security or the coders used to be separate across. Both the guys did not need to talk to each other. They were running their own show and infrastructure guys were running their own show. With all these software-defined data centers which are coming into picture, the SDNs which are coming into picture, infrastructure itself is becoming more and more software-dependent. We are talking of the world where we are talking of APIs, right? At the end of the day, everybody is saying, boss, if you want this information across from you, I am the Google of the world, I am the Facebook of the world, I am the Vodafone, I am the Airtel, please take API from me. Or I am the Aadhaar of the world. This is the API which I give across. Please take this information across. Digital lockers, all this thing is all API driven. And you have infrastructure which is all in all software. Hence, the infrastructure is also becoming more and more software driven and API driven. SDNs which we are talking about. You know, as F5 we were giving APIs on the data plane, on the control plane and on the management plane right from 2021 onwards. I can, you know, we have iRules, we have iCall, we have iApp. Anybody you can, you know, amazing. We do 35% of our business from service providers. And where do we sit across? We sit across on the VAS side. We sit on the packet core side. Tweaking, doing the deep packet inspection on those traffic which is going through. And writing iRules on it so that you can tweak and build business case. So since we are a layer 7 device, we have visibility onto the traffic side, we are able to do this activity. But unfortunately, we have not been addressing the government space as such. We are new to the Indian government space. And Gaurav, you know, is driving that initiative piece for us. But it's an amazing technology. And this is the philosophy which we are building. And, you know, this is what we need to relook at all these security architectures. We need to look at this paradigm which is shifting across in the world.
Just to add you on to that, we started focusing on the government maybe recently in 3 months or 6 months back only. But still we are number one as per the IDC report. We are number one in India. We have been selling, we have been talking to our customers. There are more than 1,500 or 2,000 customers that we have in India. And they have been using their satisfied customers. So if we leave the government, still we are the number one overall, maybe including the government also. But when the government maybe the initiative has started, so maybe we'll see more. So we will work with you people.
I think any questions, inputs, I would be more than happy to take it. Any new things you want to? That's it from my side. Thanks for your time. Hopefully it was informative. Thank you.
I think if I was open for any government project also, right?
Yes, so we are working in multiple projects we are working. And many of the RFPs and maybe we are working in the designing. It's not only onto the perimeter side, focus being the application side. Application security has been the major focus. Either it is the web application firewall web or the DDoS or the SSL VPN or the load balancing or the acceleration of the application. So we are working there.